Hi, I'm Dr. Faranak Kamangar, and welcome to the Future of Dermatology Podcast. We're here to talk about the real science behind skin, the medical breakthroughs, the cosmetic innovations, and everything in between.
Hello, we are here I'm so excited for this episode with Dr. Marwa Hakimi, who's going to be hosting. So I'm going to hand it to her right away to introduce what we're doing. But I am so excited. We are, of course, talking a lot about inflammatory skin conditions, itch, and one of the things we really don't get to do as much in clinic is spend a long time talking to our patients about what their experience is. We spend so much time in like the clinicals of it and deciding treatment, but not so much the journey. So
thank you so much, Farah. I'm excited to be here. And thank you so much. This is my patient, Miles. He's joining us today. Miles, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and about your journey, your skin journey?
Yeah, of course. Hello, I'm Miles Marquez. I'm a patient of Dr. Hakimi here, and I have been dealing with atopic dermatitis and eczema and all that jazz for maybe my whole life, ever since I was a baby. So got a whole lot of history here in the itch world. Again, I'm also really glad to be here. Dr. Hakimi is an awesome dermatologist. One of my favorite, actually my favorite so far. And yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us. And she's also our favorite as well.
Yeah. Awesome.
How would you describe itch to someone who's never experienced it? What does it feel like for you?
I think it's different for a lot of different people. But I'd say for me, it's like almost like a heat, in like these corners of my arms or underneath my legs, kind of those like traditional areas where you'd find something like eczema or something like itch. But it's this heat that like doesn't go away no matter how much you itch it, and when you itch it too much, it's like almost numb, right? I've gotten into these like itch spells, these sort of, events kind of where it just keeps going, keeps itching, and no matter how much I itch, it just doesn't go away, It just like I've itched my arms until they bled, to be honest, Yeah. Okay.
And has it always been like that since childhood, like as early as you can remember?
Oh yeah, totally. In a lot of the same places too. It doesn't go away no matter. I've tried a bunch of different things too, to be honest. I've put like cold water. I've like put ice on my arms and stuff, but it's kind of one of those things that you just kind of have to let pass for the most part.
And then was there like any period of your life where you felt like it's gone for a while, or is it always kind of lingering and always been there?
It's always kind of been lingering, I'd say. It's led me to make a lot of different choices in like the clothes that I wear. Like for a long time, I couldn't wear linen, because it would like scratch against my arms, or the way it would like kind of chafe on my body, But it's sort of one of those things that I've always had to have in the back of my mind. Something I've dealt with for a long time.
I'm actually curious, like, what's the earliest you can remember in school? I mean, I always wonder, like, what's the youngest we can remember? Like, what was that? Gosh, was that something like in this, like when you're sitting there at desk looking at a teacher, was it something that would like cross your mind, or not so much maybe in the early hours of the day?
I think like, real early on when I was a kid, it was just kind of a thing that I sort of dealt with. I'd be doing my work in class and I would just kind of itch my arm, go back, But I think it was really kind of middle school, I'd say. I really noticed it because other people started noticing it. They'd say, dude, why are you itching your arm? Like, oh my God, dude, your arm is super red. And, that was kind of one of those moments where I was like, oh yeah, I've been doing this for like a really long time. I've been dealing with this for a while, and I'd say sort of middle school, that age is kind of when a lot of those insecurities sort of start to bubble up. You kind of become a little more aware of, what you look like and how other people perceive you. Right. And I'd say that's kind of when I became really hyper aware of like, oh my gosh, this is something that is like bugging the crap out of me for like a lot.
Right.
And a lot of patients say that the itch is worse at night. Do you feel like it's affected your ability to sleep, rest, and then be present in your day-to-day life?
Totally. I've lost hours of my life when I'm sleeping, just trying to get to bed. But you kind of toss and you turn. Nothing really helps. I've taken showers at like 3 in the morning because I'm like, I just have to put like cold something on my body. I just have to get away from this feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also, I think itching too, and like kind of being afraid of it just kind of led me to make a lot of decisions in like the fabric that I have to sleep on. You know what I mean? I have to get like special cooling fabric or something, or it's kind of like, it's just one of those things that I always have to think about even when I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah. ants rolling around itching
Yeah,
like
no,
a
that's
bug
that's
in my bed.
that's
It's
incredible.
so
And
funny.
it's actually incredible that, like even in early childhood, even though you were experiencing this all the time, it had just become your lived experience. It
Mhm.
wasn't until a little bit older when it's like, oh, this is something that's happening,
Yeah,
that's
you kind of when you kind of like gain consciousness and like sort of perceive yourself, you're like, oh my gosh, like why am I red all the
wow,
time?
that's
You know?
incredible. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing all
Of
this. It's
course.
just so incredible to kind of see different stages of life and the sleep has always kind of been. Do you think it was always? Do you feel like did your parents say when you were younger? Was there always did you have sleep disturbances
Yeah,
or tough to sleep?
I think especially like when it's like either really, really hot out or really, really cold out, or really hot in my room or really hot, really cold in my room. It's like it's always been something that's like, oh my gosh, it's there, you know what I mean? And I've been tossing and turning since I was a kid, and like, you know, I've had to have like all kinds of different. I've tried a bunch of different, I guess, beddings. You know what I mean? Because I've just been dealing with itch, especially at night, for such a long time.
Miles, can you tell me about any moments of frustration or anxiety that you may have experienced with your symptoms?
Yeah, of course. Oh my gosh, I think the worst one that I can think of right now is, I was in high school. I was doing a school play, and I think it was opening night, maybe second or third show. But right before the play was going to start and I was going to go on, I had this huge, flare up, this huge breakout on my face, all on the part that people look at when you're on stage.
No.
And I was just like so frustrated. The whole morning before I had tried all these different creams and nothing was really working. Um, Honestly, I think it was like the makeup that I was using. It was just like causing all kinds of crazy breakouts. Um, so what I had to do was that, I went into my school's like makeup closet with like our, school plays makeup team, and they just put like a bunch of foundation on it just to cover up that redness that was coming out on stage. And oh my gosh, when I took it off at the end of the night, I was just all red underneath. It had just creeped all the way through. Um, and that was kind of one of those moments where I was like, just like, oh my gosh, is this ever gonna go away? Am I gonna be dealing with this like forever? I feel like I had a literal and a figurative crowd like watching me get red all the time, and it was just embarrassing. It was frustrating to have to deal with that, sort of following you everywhere.
My gosh, I can only
Yeah.
imagine just because, just even being in school and just getting on stage is nerve-wracking. That is just hard in
Nightmare
itself.
scenario.
Like, am I gonna fall off the stage? Am I gonna ruin my life? Just like the no, and then you also on top of that having like a reaction to the makeup, and like I can only imagine.
Yeah, and just like,
It's tough.
slightly trying to itch myself on stage in between
Yeah. Well,
lines,
and that's the
it's
thing
like,
too, right? With inflammatory, like Dr. Koo, one of our mentors, calls it like, what's he saying? So it's like a forest fire. Like once one little spot starts, then for some reason, the other cells, just the memories, just start picking up too.
everywhere.
And that's the spot. And
Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes this vicious cycle of as soon as you scratch, it becomes more itchy.
Yeah, it just happens again and again and again. And yeah.
Can you tell us what play that
Yeah, of
was?
course. It was a Shakespeare. It was Titus Andronicus.
that's just nerve-wracking
I know
to
that's
begin with.
and
That's
like
just
I'm already doing Shakespeare. I'm speaking another language up here, and I gotta worry about how my face feels. That was the worst part. I mean, it happened to me during like musicals as well. I think I was doing this show called Rock of Ages, right? Where it's like a
Oh, it's a great show.
It's a cool show, right? All these like 80s, rock songs and stuff like that. And, in between songs and in between scenes, I was just like in the back, like, oh my gosh, it's like scratching and stuff. And yeah.
Oh
So
my gosh.
it's
Yeah.
that makeup, man. It's that stage makeup.
True. There is a lot.
Right?
A
There's
lot of
Yeah.
preservatives and everything.
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
Especially the stuff that I was using because I was like a high schooler. I had to get like the cheapest something from like Walgreens.
yeah. That's what we all used in high school.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if that answered the question.
No, absolutely. No, we're just curious. And I see it's already like family members who've also had kind of similar things. Like, do you find like your parents, if you may have had them, or like knew kind of some tricks to deal with these, or
Gosh.
were they also figuring things out for the first
Strangely
time?
enough, like that's why I was so weird in my family. I was like cursed. Like I'm like the only guy in my whole family that's got eczema at least this bad, to the point where I've got to see a dermatologist, that I've got to get on active treatments, you know what I mean? So I mean, oh my gosh, my poor mom was just trying stuff on me when I was a kid, like lotions left and right. I was trying like, herbal stuff, science, prescription stuff left and right. Um, yeah, it's pretty funny. I feel bad for her.
Have you found anything that actually helps, whether it's medically, lifestyle, or home remedies?
Yeah, I mean, let me think. I'd say when I first started seeing you, you know, you got me on Dupixent, I think, and that was like a big first step, big first change for me. Because for the longest time I was like doing like Aveeno, or like I think it was like, oh my gosh, it was some crazy cream that my mom picked up from like, I don't even know where. It was like Mayan, Egyptian something. It just came in a tub and it was like oddly colored. So I had been on all kinds of like, honey-based treatments and stuff like that. But, when I first came to see you in your office, you got me on Dupixent, and that was like kind of my first real step, I'd say, in taking something, prescribed, you know, and after that, it was like just so transformative.
Wow.
That was kind of, yeah, you really honestly helped me take that first big step into handling this, in a way that was, understandable, and also in a way that worked great. So
That's incredible.
thank
Do you
you.
actually have to ask, like, how old were you around then, or like when you first saw Dr.
I
Hakimi?
think I started seeing you when I want to say like a year ago.
Year
I
ago.
think
And was that
just
like the
about a year
first
ago.
time out of the dermatologist you'd seen that somebody had mentioned kind
Yeah,
of
like
systemic therapy? I'm curious, like, what you were kind of offered throughout the
of course.
years.
I mean, for me, like, oh my gosh, I have been seeing dermatologists for a while. I think, again, like I said, middle school was kind of like that area when I really started feeling like, okay, I think I should do something about this. And my mom kind of helped me get these, dermatologists, get in front of dermatologists, ever since then. And, for the longest time, I think which really sucked for me, I felt like I was like a real lab experiment to a bunch of different dermatologists. Um, you know, they have tried prescribing me stuff. I've tried creams. I've tried ointments. I've had like a shot in my butt cheek one time, like they just keep trying stuff and throwing stuff at me. But then when I went to see Dr. Hakimi, she really helped me approach this in sort of like an empathy first based approach, which I think was like the real big standout thing, for you as a doctor. For me, it's like, I had felt like a lab rat for so long. I'd been like poked and prodded in a million different ways. And, one of the first things that Dr. Akimi told me, was that, you don't have to live like this, right? It doesn't have to be this way. Um, and we can make steps to improve your life, And I think for you, for leading with that empathy first, it was so huge for me, because I think this sort of condition, more than anything, is like it's like a visual one. It's not something you can really hide. It's not something you can really run from. It shows itself, and people notice. So, you get insecure about these kinds of things. And when a doctor is like, try this random cream, you don't really feel seen. You don't really feel like anything's gonna help. But I think, with you taking that first step of going like, okay, like, this sucks, right? But, we can work through this, and there's ways out of this. I'd say that was kind of like the biggest and best thing,
Oh my
honestly, that's happened to
gosh.
me in my
That's
skin journey. Of
Yeah, I'm
incredible.
so glad it's been so helpful for you.
course.
I know one thing that you had mentioned when you came to see me is that, although sometimes you feel like you can hide your eczema, you don't feel like you can hide some of the symptoms of it, the itch, and how the itch plays into when people watch you scratch yourself, or, if you had to stay up all night because you couldn't sleep, like that takes a part and shows up in your
Oh
life.
yeah, totally. It's something that I felt like I could never get away from, you know. And that's kind of one of those sort of unseen things I'd say about a condition like this, is that, for the longest time I thought that I was gonna have to deal with it forever, and I was gonna have to have a rotating list of creams and ointments and lotions, etc., forever, you know. And people were just gonna notice me scratching forever. I was just gonna be that guy who like itches and like flakes and like bleeds a little bit here and there, right? Um, so yeah, thanks for helping me, get better. Thank you, Dr. Kimi.
This is an
Shout out.
incredible
You
story.
too.
Of course.
The last thing I wanted to ask you is, what do you wish more people, including doctors, know about chronic itch and living with chronic itch?
Hmm. Yeah, I think honestly, it's the fact that, when you itch like this, it's not just like, or this kind of condition isn't just like a medical condition. It's something that affects the way you see yourself, and the way you perceive yourself, and the way you kind of value yourself, right? And I hope that more doctors kind of take the same approach that you did when approaching this kind of like condition. It's like empathy first, I think that's a huge factor in the ways that, you approach care and you approach handling this kind of thing. So I say to all the people out there, it's like, lead with empathy. This is something that sucks. And this is something that people have been, most likely dealing with for a really long time. And just kind of, making that effort to not feel like, your patient is like an experiment is the biggest thing. It's the biggest part of this whole equation.
No, that's such incredible advice. And just the fact that you had seen multiple dermatologists and we know these therapies are available and it wasn't brought up or just that connection wasn't made, it really speaks to a gap. Because they're all board certified dermatologists, they have the training, but the empathy is so important. I'm actually curious. So let's say for residents or listening, those are younger physicians who we can help hone their skill sets to be like our master Dr.
Yeah.
Thinking, like, were there any specific ways? Because clinic visits can be fast too. So sometimes it's actually even just hard to make connections. And I think that's something you're just innately so great at, like, in everything you do. But like, what was it, do you think, or was there any specific questions that you're like, oh, I've never been asked that before? Or if you remember, like, was there anything specific that you were like, okay, this doctor does care, and I feel safe. Maybe we might not have figured it out in the first visit or second, but I feel safe that we're starting this journey together, and we're gonna get.
Yeah, I think for you, Dr. Hakimi, you always asked me how it kind of made me feel, and that was sort of one of the questions of like, does it embarrass you? That was one thing you asked me. Do you, like, do people notice? So just kind of, approaching a patient and asking them just full stop, how does this help you shape the image of yourself, or not help you, but how does this shape your image of yourself? You know what I mean? What kind of things, like how much does this bother you, right? Like just from beyond a physical level or from like a mental health kind of level. I'd say that's always the biggest thing because, you feel seen, I think, when physicians ask questions like that, and you feel like this is someone who is, committed to helping you, get better physically, but also feel better about yourself, and that's the best thing, I'd say. I think that's like the first thing that's got to happen for me. Because I think if a physician didn't really see me, and I've had those experiences with dermatologists who I just kind of know, oh, they're just going to try stuff on me,
Yeah.
But, when you kind of ask a question about the person on the inside, beyond this or under the skin, whoa,
Yeah.
that makes a world of a difference.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Thank you so much for just sharing your
Yeah.
story. And I'm curious, how is your skin doing now? If you feel comfortable share, are you sleeping a little bit better, or
It's
is
doing great.
it?
Yeah, I'd say after seeing Dr. Hakimi and getting me on Dupixent and helping me make the right choices, I think, in the products that I buy and the things that I do, it's like just transformative. I think this is probably the best that my skin has felt and looked my whole life. I still have some patches here and there. Like, again, it's the kind of thing that doesn't really go away, but it's the kind of thing that you learn how to deal with and you learn how to approach in ways that work for you, in ways that help you feel better about yourself. But yeah, we're doing good. We're doing
That's
good.
so great.
That's
I'm
great.
so glad. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually able to wear linen again. So, I wore my linen shirt
Yeah.
just for this.
I look
Right?
fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much. And just huge thank you to
you.
Dr. Hakimi for just always being so amazing. She's also extremely amazing in our organization as well. And you just touch everyone
Oh,
that you work
Farah.
with. And just thank you so
Yeah,
much for
thank
sharing
you so
this
much.
story, because we don't get the privilege of hearing this story, because we do have these fast clinic visits and we don't always get to hear this kind of the story and the background, and it's just amazing to hear. So thank you so much
of
for
course.
sharing it.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us today on the Future of Dermatology podcast. If you enjoyed learning about the science behind skin, make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. As a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only, not for medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider.